Hi everyone. Depression is one of the longest lasting symptoms in a dementia unit. And for depression, a person needs, quietness of mind, calmness of mind to be able to settle down. And so often depressed residents will go to their room to relax and unwind. But equally, they need socialization, to become more upbeat and create friends. But dementia units are not quiet places. They're not peaceful. So it can be a real dilemma for a person with depression as to whether they spend time in their room or in the noisy lounge to, be with the group. So really, initially, especially when the person's first admitted, respite is needed. A half day out with the family, walks outside. All of these things go a long way to be able to adjust, which the person needs to, even if depressed, adjust to the dementia facility to be able to manage living there. So just some examples of other ways too to be able to help a depressed person. I actually worked as a physiotherapist with one of the dementia residents, and she was depressed. She liked to isolate herself in her room, even though she realized actually that she should socialize. She never liked being with more than one or two people. But and when she was depressed, she would really withdraw. It was really difficult to get her to communicate, really difficult. But when she did communicate, it was so insightful and interesting and rich. It was well worth the wait. But something that really helped to lift her out of the depression or to garner her focus was actually eye contact. I noticed that when she was depressed and down, her speech was all over the place. You couldn't really understand what she was saying. I mean, she hadn't had a stroke. She was Alzheimer's dementia was her diagnosis, but still aphasia or difficulty with speech was there, and it sounded quite garbled. But other times when she spoke, it was clear as day. So it was a real mix. But one thing that helped when she was depressed and down, and when the speech was confused and scattered, was eye contact. So what I did was I'd go to her room. It was, the whole preparation, the big preparation, everything had to be in place. So her cares needed to be done, dressed, showered, washed, relaxed, settled, made sure that she had a cup of tea, that she'd eaten something. So she wasn't hungry or thirsty or whatever when we sat down. That's the thing. In terms of getting the best from any dementia resident, they need to be comfortable and settled, to have gone to the bathroom, to have had a glass of water. I mean, if you want to go to the toilet, you can't settle if you're sitting there wanting to go to the toilet, or if you're thirsty, or if you haven't got your hearing aids or your glasses if you want to see. So all this preparation setup often takes half the time of your visit, actually. But it's part of it, it's part of the equation, and one just needs to go through it to get the results at the end of the day. So with this lady, she had a lovely two-seater in her room, which faced out onto the Southern Alps. It was glorious, actually. She was a skier in her youth and used to tramp the mountains, so that really de-escalated her when she could see that view. So we'd sit there, wintertime, snow on the mountains. By now she had a heater in her room, which was a big coup. Before that it was freezing, but we managed to get a heater in, and that actually helps a lot for depressed people, is warmth. I mean, there's nothing worse, is there, lying in your room depressed and cold? Not good. So do make sure that that the room is either warm enough, or it's always good to bring in a heater and have a little notice on the wall when to put the heater on and at what temperature for your mother. If she's warm and comfortable, then there is a chance at least of being able to lift oneself out of, down the doldrums, so to speak. So with all this set up, I'd speak to her on some interesting topics. She also liked the same topics as the other residents. Positive thinking and confidence building were her favourite topics. And it was actually, she was the initiator of those topics being used in the group. So, it sort of fed into one another. So when I asked her to look me in the eyes and focus on what I was saying when I was speaking to her, I could just see the tension settle. Her face was so much more relaxed. Her speech slowed down. Her eyes focused. And her speech improved with eye contact, which was really interesting. I mean, I don't know why her speech improved with eye contact. Maybe it was because she was focusing on my eyes. And so with that concentration enabled her speech to improve. But certainly she was the one when I said to her, what do depressed people need? And she said, peace. You know, and that's a very insightful comment. So she somehow found peace through eye contact and became very settled with eye contact. And actually, her family were having difficulty understanding her speech as well. In fact, they were finding that they couldn't understand very little of what she was saying. I was at least 50% of the time I was able to understand what she was saying, but they were finding it maybe 5%. So they weren't having any success at all. And so I explained to them that I was having, finding that the eye contact really helped a lot. And they started doing that with her too. And the speech improved with them as well when they were holding eye contact with their mother. And she was quite happy to be reminded of it. She never got irritated or upset about being asked to focus on eye contact. She did with other things, I have to say. She didn't like having to sit up when she'd been lying down in bed. And she didn't like to be interrupted in the middle of a sleep and all of those sorts of things. But in terms of eye contact and being asked to focus on the eyes, I'd just say, look, look me in the eyes and keep concentrating on what I'm saying, because it will help your speech. And if the eyes started wandering, I'd say, please say, Jane, look at me again. Please keep the eye focus, because your speech is a lot more improved, and I think your thinking is a lot more focused when you can concentrate. And look me in the eyes, just say for 1 or 2 minutes, not a long length of time, but enough that she could get that settled thinking and focus and concentration. It was fantastic. And I actually started doing that eye contact with other people in the group, in the unit. And they found it useful as well. It was really good. There was one woman there, she was a former nurse, and she had excellent eye contact. And she used to say, I always look people in the eyes. And she did. She had a really fierce sort of, not almost a stare, but a nice, she had lovely blue violet eyes. So it was a nice stare, if you can call a stare nice. And she'd sort of gaze at all the dementia residents. That was her big time occupation, is looking, with these beady eyes at everyone. And she used to say to me, there, she said, I can see it. I said, what can you see? I can see that they're thinking. She liked to see people thinking. Now that's an interesting occupation. She was amazing, and she used to draw me to her and say, look at me. And I'd say, now what are you doing? What are you looking at? And she'd say, I'm drawing your power. She was so intense, and actually I could feel it. She'd look at me, and it was as if she was drawing, well, she said she was drawing my power. How she did that, who knows, but certainly it was effective in one way, shape or form. She had 4 daughters who didn't visit, but she sadly, once a year maybe, but but she sustained herself with her interest, with her eye contact, with her joie de vivre of life. She had a great sense of humour. And she was never depressed as a result. And the staff really liked her. She was friends with everyone. She didn't have a specific friend, but she was friends with all the group. And that also helps in sustaining one's life at a dementia unit, by the way. Being friendly with the group and enjoying the company of the group. It's very important, the community. So I've written these 2 books, The Resident's Voice and The Resident's Rise, both from a dementia unit. They can be got from Amazon and the description below my website. Thank you for your looks and likes. Please subscribe. I so appreciate those subscriptions, so that this sort of fledgling channel can strengthen a bit, progress a bit. That would be great. Thank you.